In this edition of the Bucs Report, we are joined by Rick Hughes of the Bucs Report as we talk about Gio Bernard's botched fake punt. What was really going on there? And then we'll talk about Tom Brady as he is throwing 4 turnovers in the last game. Very uncharacteristic, suffices to say. Then we will also talk about the future of Tompkins as a punt returner. We'll talk about all of that and more next on this edition of the Bucs Report. Let's go! Well, hello and welcome into this edition of the Bucs Report. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms. You can find it on the Bucs Report. Check them out online, bucsreport.com. You can find it on YouTube. Just search for the Bucs Report. And of course, you can find this audio podcast wherever you find your audio podcasts. My name is Dan Holme. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Bucs Minutecast. So in this edition of the Bucs Report, we are happy to have Rick Hughes from the Bucs Report. Rick, welcome to the show.
How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I wish I could say the same thing for the Buccaneers as they found a way to squander and lose another game. The Buccaneers lost 34-23 to the Bengals, which saw them give up 34 unanswered points after taking a 17-0 lead. The Bucs had 4 straight turnovers in the second half and botched fake punt, which turned the momentum. The Bucs fall to 6-8 and will still probably end up winning the NFC South. What are your thoughts about the state of the Bucs right now? Obviously, not the result we were looking for. You know, when I was watching the game against the Bengals, I said, finally, a really great win. And then, of course, the Bucs do what the Bucs always do. They get a little crazy and they get a little relaxed. What are your thoughts?
Do we really have to recap this? I mean, listen, this is probably I've been a Bucs fan since 1976. This one hurt. Do you know what it takes to hurt a Bucs fan? We're used to it, but this one hurt. I mean, it really did. It was this was just awful.
Yeah, I mean, and then the thing of it is, there's a lot of things to look at, and we'll talk about them in this show, is Brady's 4 turnovers. So, I mean, I think that the easy thing to say is it's Todd Bowles and it's Byron Leftwich. It's all their fault. And I'm going to say it's their fault, at least in part. But Brady throwing 4 turnovers is not helping anything. I was listening to Locked On Bucs, and they were talking about it, and they're like, I don't want to hear anything about the Bucs defense. A lot of the onus of this loss lies on Tom Brady. What are your thoughts on Tom Brady? What is going wrong with him? 4 turnovers and just doesn't seem to be really dialed in.
Look, I don't believe Father Time has caught up with Tom Brady, but I believe Tom Brady's just not as interested, I think, in the whole process and everything as he was. Year 1 with the Buccaneers, there were extra practices. He was getting people over at whatever the high school is that they were out playing on the field. They were working hard. It was this hell-bent driven attitude that a championship is the only thing that's acceptable. And this year, when they asked Brady, what are you doing? You're missing 10 days at training camp. You're this, you're that. He goes, well, I'm 45. I've got a lot going on. Well, year 1, he didn't have a lot going on. He had one thing going on, and that was a drive toward a championship. Now he's got a lot going on, and you can tell.
Yeah, and the interesting thing, I mean, in all fairness, there was the whole Bitcoin or FTX thing. There was the divorce to Giselle. But for a while after he got divorced there, it seemed like he kind of got back to his normal self. He looked like he was more dialed in and more engaged. Like you're saying, I don't know if necessarily it's Father Time that has caught up to him, but in any case, it does seem that he's not performing at the same level. some interesting things about the game, and where the Bucs saw their most productivity was when Evans was engaged. So you saw Evans engaged in the first half of the game, and then the second half of the game a little bit absent. What do you think was going on there, that Evans was the primary target? It seems like the Bucs in general play the best when Evans and Godwin are targeted the most, but for whatever reason, if he didn't seem to throw to Evans, I guess there could be coverage or that kind of thing. What were your thoughts on Evans?
Look, I'm sure they shifted coverage. They realized this guy's killing us. Let's make some changes. But we've got 2 decades of Tom Brady being able to adjust to this. Something is going on at the quarterback position. Now, we can blame coaching. Well, I thought it was Arians last year that was a problem. Now it's Bowles. Well, Bowles is the problem. It's not Bowles. Leftwich is the problem. I don't know. I mean, there's no excuse for what we saw on the field. We can say this team is not as good as the championship year. Okay, but they're better than what we're seeing this year.
Yeah, and the big thing for me is the coaching thing. And I mean, if we want, I don't say that Todd Bowles is the primary excuse, but one of the things that's bugged me is that they kind of squandered the last season of Tom Brady for playing for the Buccaneers and ostensibly the NFL. One of the interesting things I was listening to on Rick Stroud's this program this morning is he said that Todd Bowles was appointed. He wasn't chosen, meaning, well, you're the next man up, so I guess you're going to be the head coach. So he didn't really have time to put a team around him, so that is why he's making all the defensive calls. One could say that maybe Todd Bowles is a bit distracted. Do you think, and I think ultimately, that the Bucs should have gone out and went with a proven winner? One of the things I talk about is that Todd Bowles is an inexperienced coach, and people will say, well, he had 3 years playing or coaching for the Jets. That doesn't really mean a whole lot to me. Do you think the Bucs should have gone out and went with a proven winner when they found out that Arians wasn't going to be the head coach?
Arians wasn't going to step down if it wasn't going to be Todd Bowles. So I don't know that this is, I'm not even sure that we can have this discussion. In a perfect world, there are lots of coaches that you could look at and say, yeah, I want that guy in a perfect world. But, I'm sorry, Mike Tomlin isn't stepping away from Pittsburgh anytime soon. Right. I mean, it's, look, this is who we have. Todd Bowles was handed Byron Leftwich. I wish I could figure out unwind the Byron Leftwich thing, but it seems unbelievable. It's just so hard to figure out how he. All right, so let me tell you what bothers me more than anything. It's not. Believe it or not, the bad play calling is not what bothers me more than anything. It's the smug attitude in the press conferences towards the people asking him questions like, how dare you ask me? Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, and his answers are horrible. So, yeah, you're going to get asked difficult questions. And it just feels like this team, I don't know why. You hear the FTX thing. Did that have something to do with? Did players lose money, and now they're mad at Brady? Look, I think we're all grasping at excuses. The bottom line is they're not playing good football. I don't care about all the other, whatever's distracting. I don't care. There's no excuse for this level of performance.
So then the question is, and then we'll wrap up this segment here, is talking about where do the Bucs go next in head coach? I've heard, different podcasters, like I've said, I've heard Locked On Bucs, and I've heard Rick Stroud and Greg Auman write about it. They say, as bad as everyone thinks that Todd Bowles is, kind of brace yourself. He's probably going to be back next year.
He's not going anywhere. They're not getting rid of him after 1 year. They're going to win the division accidentally, but they're going to win the division. And the fact that you accidentally win the division, he's coming back. Now, do I think Byron's coming back? Boy, did Byron Leftwich mess up not taking that Jaguars job. But do I think Byron's coming back? Probably not. And I don't think he's going to get another offensive coordinator job right away either. I think we've got Bowles. I don't think Bowles is the problem. I genuinely don't think Bowles is the problem. I will say the team, Okay, Bowles is a very his personality doesn't scream excitement, and he's not the life of the party. And maybe the team's taking on some of that personality, but I really don't think Todd Bowles is the issue. I do think there's a play calling issue for sure. There's a play calling issue. Todd Bowles will be here next year. Everybody settle in. Okay. He's not going anywhere. And I genuinely don't think he's the problem. The defense is playing well. Last thing I'll say about it, Tom Brady imploded in the third quarter. Absolutely horribly. Jameis Winston-like implosion. 4 straight drives, turning the ball over on our own end of the field because Brady can't hand the ball off. And then if you heard his podcast, he's laughing about it. I don't know. It seems like the old Brady from 2 years ago wouldn't have thought that was funny.
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, for me, it almost seems like he's not really vested in it anymore. And if he isn't invested in it, then why did he come back? All right, so after the break here, we are going to talk a little bit more about that botched punt return, or that fake punt, rather, with Giovanni Bernard. And then we'll talk about the future of Devin Tompkins. We'll talk about that after the break. All right, welcome back into this edition of the Bucs Report. In this episode, we are joined by Rick Hughes of the Bucs Report. In this next segment, we're going to talk a little bit about what went wrong. And one of the things that I think kind of set the wheels in motion was the whole fake punt, Gio Bernard. Everyone is saying, and it's, of course, the head coach is saying, that Gio knew what was going on. Giovanni Bernard said he had no idea what was going on. I guess, like they always say, the truth lies somewhere in the middle. What were your thoughts on that?
He obviously didn't know what was going on. He got hit in the face with the ball. I mean, he obviously didn't know. Now, Todd Bowles saying, yeah, he knew what was going on. I think that was more of Todd Bowles does not throw his players under the bus and will say whatever. He'll just lie to cover it up for them. He'll whatever to cover up for those guys. Giovanni Bernard had no clue. And if you saw the whole interaction, the interview after the game, he was very, there's an attitude, something going on in this locker room where I don't know. People are not focused. The players are not focused. Everybody's not focused. I remember in one game, there was a missed, Mike Evans just dropped a ball that would have been like a 60-yard touchdown. And then they said, well, after that, this was like the second play of the game. Well, it kind of took the wind out of our sails.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing on there. And, like you're talking about Todd Bowles not throwing his players on under the bus, asked about the fake punt. Bowles declined to elaborate, saying that they talked about it in meetings, but wouldn't get into specifics, said nobody else did anything wrong on the play, which would seem to eliminate an early snap or something like that. Well, I mean, I guess I don't buy what he's selling because it looks like it hit Gio in the helmet. And even if he was prepared for it or not, I don't know if he would have been able to catch it. There's so many questions that surround that. Why did they have Giovanni Bernard out there? He's never plays in that kind of position. So the Bengals obviously knew something was up. In any event, it's kind of one of the things for me when I was watching the game. It just seemed to me like things only got negative after that. All right.
My question is this.
Yeah.
It's 4th and 1. If you have 1 yard to go, is the best play you have a fake punt?
Right. You look like a genius if it works.
Do you? I mean, yeah, I guess you just look, okay, good, that worked. But is that really the best play you've got when you're up 17-3? That's really your best play? I mean, right. It feels like that was not, I don't know. That was big risk, low reward. It's not like you're getting a touchdown out of it. You're getting a first down.
Right. Like you're saying there, he wasn't going to return it. I mean, I guess ideally he would have returned the football the whole way, but I ultimately don't think that was going to be the case. So next here, let's talk a little bit about Devin Tompkins. He was brought in to replace Jalen Darden, ostensibly. Todd Bowles says he's comfortable with rookie Devin Tompkins as the return man and knows he will learn that he can score on every play. Sometimes it's best to just put your head down and go forward, or he can, excuse me. Tompkins had 3 kickoff returns, only got 17, 8, and 21 on those 3. 2 punt returns, got 9 yards, 5 yards on those 2. Not a great night. I guess, it's a small sample size on Devin Tompkins. I was never really that impressed with Jalen Darden, despite the fact that he was ranked as one of the best in the NFL. What are your thoughts about Tompkins so far? I don't know, maybe on a punt return or not that great, but I will say that guy has some wheels and can really move when he gets the football.
Let me say this about Jalen Darden. Yes, he was ranked yardage wise as I believe 9th. It's because he got a lot of punts. Okay, he returned a lot of punts. That's the reason he had that much in yardage. Did you ever feel like he was on the verge of breaking one? Ever? No. If you already felt like Tompkins, maybe, already. Yeah. So am I fine with this? Yeah, there's going to be growing pains. There's going to be mistakes. There's going to be little things. Look, he got thrown backwards about 10 yards on one play and then tackled deep. Okay, you won't do that again. All right. But, you don't know it till you know it. You don't learn that stuff till you learn it. And there's a certain process, I guess, he's got to go through. But I can tell you this. If he learns that if they kick the ball into the end zone, you can let it go.
Right.
You don't have to return it. If he learns that, and learns how to look forward and say, okay, I think I got something here or whatever. The way that kid runs, I mean, he is head down, barreling straight up the field. He's not heading for the sidelines,
right?
Like we've been used to seeing. He's barreling. He's looking for a hole, and if there's a hole, he's going to hit that hole hard, and that's something new. So, do I think he's a? Let me say this, with all of the problems that have been going on, I don't see him as one of them.
Yeah, that's not something that pops out real big.
Right.
A player that had a really good game, if I'm going to find a bright spot in the game, was Carlton Davis. I thought he really stepped up and was engaged, and he kind of kept the Bucs in it for the most part. If there was any, great plays that were made, if I'm going to pick the silver lining of the game, I'm going to point to Carlton Davis's big role in the game. What were your thoughts in the game? He seemed to be really engaged, and in the beginning of the game, that's what the Bucs needed, and he was the answer.
Yeah, he played 60 minutes. If you take 15 minutes of the Brady game away, the Bucs win this game handily. It's just 15 minutes of whatever happened where Tom Brady, despite the way everybody else was playing, gave the game away. Now, were there other mistakes made? Sure. Yeah, of course there were. But when I hear things like, well, what about those defensive penalties, those key defensive penalties, like on the sack? The defense, Carlton Davis in particular, look, they shouldn't have even been on the field. The Buccaneers should have had the ball 4 of those times that they just gave a short field to Cincinnati. So Carlton Davis, it's a shame that performance was wasted. If there's a bright spot to take from it, Tom Brady is not going to lose you that many games. This was one of them.
Yeah, and that was one of the games, that I thought to myself, that was a measuring stick for the Buccaneers. Oftentimes I hear people say, well, I'm glad they're playing this poor team. They're going to get a win. I don't care about that. I want the Bucs to beat some of the best teams in the league. That is going to show you if they, in fact, have what it takes. Because if you're going to win the Super Bowl, you got to beat the best. That's just the way it is. You're not playing the last place team in the Super Bowl.
Can I say some horrible thing here? Can I break with what is, I guess, the normal way of doing things, and I'm supposed to say, yeah, but rah rah, there's still hope, or yeah, but look, it's not a Super Bowl team this year.
Yeah. They're backing their way into winning the NFC
Right.
South. Not convincingly. I mean, let's say if the Falcons or the Saints or the Panthers, any one of these teams played a lot better, I think the Bucs could be near the bottom. It's just, I guess luck. And I don't want a stolen victory. I don't want to get into the playoffs based on the fact that the rest of the teams are poor. You know what I'm saying? Because that there's not going to be a real good outcome there.
Well, as a longtime Buccaneers fan, I'll take the playoffs any way I can get them.
Right.
But I don't want to back into the playoffs, but we're in the playoffs.
Right.
Look, the Falcons are not good enough to win out. The Panthers are not good enough they're not even going to beat Detroit this week, so the Panthers will be out of it. And the Saints are, that's kind of a joke at this point. I mean, I have a good feeling that the Buccaneers are going to close out the season really, really strong, and it would not even shock me if the Buccaneers don't finish with a winning record, and then everybody's going to look at now they're on a roll. No, they're not. Okay. This is not the year probably. Now, would I love to be wrong? Yes. Am I going to be rooting against my own words? You better believe it. You better believe it. If I can say anything to Buccaneers fans, it's if you've been around for any length of time, enjoy this. Enjoy the playoffs. Enjoy it because it hasn't happened often. So just take it. And you know what? There are times the Bucs deserve to be in the playoffs and didn't get in. So everybody's saying this year they don't deserve, but they're going to get in anyway. You know what? They deserve it. They deserve it because they won the division, best record in the division. They deserve it. Go Bucs.
Yeah. All right. So after the break, we'll talk about if there is a must-win game. There's a lot of must-win games, but if there's a good chance of winning, it's going to be the next game against the Cardinals. We'll talk about that next. All right, welcome back into this edition of the Bucs Report. In this edition, we are joined once again here by Rick Hughes. In this following segment here, there's a lot of things that you could point to why the Bucs aren't playing as well. The myriad of injuries. It kind of all started for me in the beginning of the season when Jensen got injured. And then everyone thought to themselves, wow, this isn't going according to plan. Then there's been injuries to Tristan Wirfs and Antoine Winfield and, just a long laundry list of different players. The thing for me is that some of these players are going to be coming back towards the tail end of the season. Jensen comes to mind in particular. So for me, I think there is a chance. So you're saying there's a chance? I'm saying there's a chance that once all of these players that have been missing for our lion's share of the season, once they come back towards the tail end of the season, who knows who this Bucs team is going to be?
Absolutely. You're right. Everything I've just said about, look, we're not a Super Bowl team. That's so far. We got a pretty good track record for the year, but yeah, if these guys come back, who knows? When you get in the playoffs, you do still have Tom Brady. And I think this is a key right here. What I'm about to say, I think is a key that should give every Buccaneers fan some hope. Tom Brady has been playing pretty much scared. He's getting rid of the ball so fast that routes can't develop. Mike Evans can't, that's not a speedy dude. Okay. He is not having a chance for his routes to develop. Godwin is getting healthier. If Brady in the playoffs, what I expect is you'll start to see Brady hold on to the ball and be willing to take the hit, willing to risk it. He always does this. He doesn't care that much about regular season games. He cares when you get to the postseason. And when you get to this postseason, especially if you believe that this is his last season, I imagine that guy's going to leave it all on the field.
Yeah, you got to think he will. A lot of players and some teams have a different gear. I've seen it in hockey. I see it in football, baseball. Like, where was this team during the regular season? They're completely different.
Yeah.
So the Bucs are in a good position here. They are playing a team that is not playing that great. As Bucs offense seeks to play a complete game like the first half versus Bengals, they face a Cardinals team Sunday that has given up the most points in the NFL. At 26.6 points per game. Defense ranks 32nd in the red zone, 25th on third down, 25th in sack, and 23 in interceptions. I'm going to say if there is a chance that the Bucs are going to win a game. And I said this multiple times this season. I said it against the Browns. I said it's the Steelers, etc. If there is a must-win game, this is a must-win game. I mean, if you're not going to push the panic button here, have it right here, because if the Bucs can't find a way to beat the Cardinals, go ahead and push that panic button, because maybe the season isn't going quite the way they think. What is your thoughts on the Cardinals? My big fear is they go into it as a trap game. Look, guys, we've been playing poor, but we're playing the Cardinals. It's going to be easy. And then they lose the game. That would be my worst case scenario. Tell me about the next game coming up here.
If you've lost as much as they've lost, and then this is a trap game, that's unthinkable. Look, the Bucs struggle against quarterbacks that you can't prepare for. They're going to be playing a quarterback. They have no idea what to expect out of this guy. Here we go again. Look, I don't believe this is a must-win game. I know that sounds crazy when you're 6-8 to say this is not a must-win. The last two games are must-win games.
Yeah.
And look, if they come out and perform well in this game, I expect they will win the last two. If that happens, they're 9-8. Everybody listening to this podcast is going to forget all the crap they've said about them. And we're all going to be, cheering and pulling together. It's a big week. It's a big game. Like I said, this week decides whether the Buccaneers have a winning season or not.
Yeah. I mean, and that's true because, everyone rides the high. They beat the Saints and everyone was drinking the creamsicle Kool-Aid. And then all of a sudden they fell flat on their face and it was like a balloon that got popped. So in any event, one of the things I heard, I cover hockey, and one of the things they said is a team is never as good as they are when they're playing their best. They're never as bad as they are when they're playing their worst. And I know that's kind of not really philosophical, but, if you think about it, it's kind of interesting that there are highs and lows. But the one thing I'm going to say is you can never discredit Tom Brady and what he's done. I will never forget what he did when he was the quarterback of the Patriots and they were playing the Falcons in the Super Bowl. And it was against great odds that the Patriots came back and won that game. I want to say it was like 5 years ago. So if Brady can do that again, if he can do that, then for me, I'm not Tom Brady. Then I would say mission accomplished. You got your 8th ring, call it a day. Ultimately, that's my hopes and my thoughts for Tom Brady. All right, Rick, thank you for joining me on this edition of the Bucs Report. Why don't you tell all of our listeners and viewers where we can find you online and where we can find your work?
Twitter, at Go Bucs Live. Facebook, at Go Bucs Live. You can just go to find all the links, just go to www.bucs.live and you'll see all the links and everything on where to find me. It's probably the easiest way to do it. And if you want to see and hear Tuesday nights, 9 p.m., myself and David Whitescarver, if you guys remember us together, we're going to be launching Bucs Live starting tonight. You can see it on Bucs Report. You can see it at bucs.live. You can see it all over the place, all the places I just told you.
All right, Rick. Once again, thank you for joining me on this edition of the Bucs Report, and I'll talk to you again next time.
Thank you, Dan.